Everything we thought we knew about Trump's trade war was backward. It started as a headline: bold tariffs, high-stake negotiations, and a promise to make America win again. But beneath all the theatrics lies a strategy with a missing piece that could break the whole game. The third round of U.S.-China trade negotiations. Once again, no breakthrough. Just another 90-day pause on additional tariffs. And while it may look like Trump has been scoring big, forcing Japan and South Korea into massive investments, pushing the EU into massive procurement deals, and slamming 15% tariffs across the board, the truth beneath is far more complicated. So here's our central question today. Is Trump's so-called trade victory already collapsing under its own design? Stick around. What's buried at the end of this story might completely transform how you see America's role in the global economy. Do you think Trump has actually won the trade war? Yes or no? Drop your thoughts below. I'm reading every comment. Since April 7th, 2025, Trump has accelerated his trade agenda at full throttle, slapping uniform tariffs on Japan, South Korea, and the European Union. And that's not all. He's demanded over $5 trillion in investment and purchasing commitments. $500 billion from Japan, $350 billion from Korea, another $100 billion in energy deals. For Europe, the numbers are even larger. $600 billion worth of purchases followed by another $750 billion in energy and real estate acquisitions. At first glance, it looks like a masterstroke. America, flexing its economic weight to secure massive capital inflows and stifle foreign competition. But is this a win? Not quite. Because there's one major problem: China. Despite striking these one-sided deals with other nations, the core of Trump's trade ambition was never about tariffs for their own sake. It was to rebuild the global trade matrix with America at the center. And in that reconstruction, China isn't just a piece of the puzzle, it's the keystone. Without China, Trump's whole framework falls apart. Let's zoom out for a second. The global trade and monetary system isn't just built on goods, it's built on cycles. The flow of dollars and products must be continuous. And the post-war era system that America dominated was built on one thing: running deficits. Here's how it worked. The U.S. would print dollars, run trade and fiscal deficits, then use those dollars to buy foreign goods. Those same dollars would then flow back into the U.S. economy through debt purchases, stock market inflows, and real estate investments, creating a dollar-based closed loop. But over time, the engine began to sputter. The problem? America depended on ever-growing deficits. And as Warren Buffett once put it, it started looking like a land-rich man selling off all his best farmland, 1 acre at a time. Foreign nations grew wary. If the U.S. is selling its industrial base and racking up mountains of debt, how long before the whole system crashes? Slowly but surely, trust in the dollar cycle started to erode. This is where Trump stepped in. His logic: if the world already wants out of the old system, might as well break it first and force a reset on America's terms. That's why he launched the trade war, not just to punish, but to tear down and rebuild. But the harder challenge came next: how to construct a new system that preserved America's monetary dominance while reversing deindustrialization. Initiatives like the Mar-a-Lago Agreement or the Pennsylvania Plan were early attempts, but they hit the same wall. For a new trade framework to work, it can't just benefit America, it has to circulate. Goods and currency flowing in all directions. So far, everything Trump has negotiated has been one-way, draining capital into the U.S. without building a functioning cycle. Here's where the flaw in execution becomes evident. High tariffs act like a dam, cutting off dollar outflows to Europe, Japan, and South Korea. In return, those countries are pressured into moving factories to the U.S. and investing in American infrastructure. But here's the problem. Once those factories start producing, who's buying the products? If dollars aren't flowing out to other countries, they can't afford to buy what America makes. The U.S. won't let them use their own currencies either. Yen, won, and euro aren't viable payment options under this system. Without international demand, the whole setup becomes circular, or more precisely broken, relying purely on internal demand. It's completely unsustainable. If you've seen our earlier videos, you'll recall we shared a model like this. A company's profitability only improves when its market Share grows to a scale large enough that revenue meaningfully exceeds its fixed and variable costs, especially in capital-intensive or R&D heavy sectors. America simply doesn't have a big enough domestic market to support high-tech industries alone. High-end manufacturing, the very industries Trump wants to bring back, rely on large-scale demand to justify expensive R&D cycles, drive innovation, and maintain profitability. Without a strong international customer base, those industries bleed money. And that brings us back to the real point. If Trump wants his new trade cycle to work, he needs external buyers. Enter China. When we talk about consumer markets, no country even comes close to China. Just look at some benchmarks. Most of China's tech giants, Huawei, Xiaomi, BYD, DJI, forged their early growth almost entirely from domestic revenues. In 2024, China sold over 31 million cars, accounting for 42% of global auto sales. Even more astonishing, 62% of global EV sales came from China alone. Western governments have tried to block access. The US banned Chinese EVs outright. Europe imposed high tariffs. The result? Chinese EV companies kept growing anyway, anchored by domestic demand. Contrast that with companies like Tesla, which earned over half its revenue outside the US, or Toyota, which relies on overseas markets for 77% of its income. Even Apple owes more than 50% of its sales to international buyers. Without giant external markets, those companies wouldn't survive. It's the same across sectors. Semiconductors, solar panels, smartphones, home appliances. Everyone needs external demand. If you're still watching, you're not here for surface-level analysis. Make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell. Endgame Compass breaks down the moves shaping global markets and power structures before they hit mainstream headlines. So why does the West keep underestimating China's market? In 2024, China's total retail sales hit 48 trillion yuan, around 22% of the global total. Yet many Western analysts still claim Chinese consumption is weak. Why? Because they often fold in fixed costs like housing, healthcare, and insurance into their formulas, diluting real consumer activity. They also fixate on China's consumption to GDP ratio, which hovers around 40% compared to America's 60%. But that paints a skewed picture. Argentina has a 60% consumption to GDP ratio too. Bangladesh. Over 70%? Are they booming consumer-driven economies? Not even close. In reality, what matters is absolute volume, and China's dwarfs most of the world. So let's follow Trump's logic to its end. If America wants to export again both goods and dollars, it needs a buyer with the capacity and willingness to absorb them. That buyer has to be China. How? One possibility. U.S. capital flows into China via a partially open Chinese financial system. Dollars move through investment accounts, property, or financial instruments. China gets capital. America gets demand. Then, as the yuan strengthens against the dollar due to inflows, American goods become more affordable in Chinese markets. Imports rise, and the dollar starts circulating again, but this time via China. Strategically, it's clever. Tactically, risky. Short-term, China gains American investment and potentially faster status as a high-income country. But there's a catch. Expanded deficits risk mirroring the same deindustrialization that hurt the U.S. in effect. Trump is proposing to hand China the same drug America got hooked on, and hope China plays along. But why would China accept that deal? To join America's new loop, China would have to trade industrial power for short-term financial gain. So what's in it for them? Certainly not survival. Because unlike 2008, China isn't desperate today, let's be honest. China isn't facing an existential economic crisis. Sure, growth has slowed. But prices are stable, civil order is intact, and the strategic landscape favorable. Geopolitically, there's no regional power threatening national security. Military spending remains comfortable under 2% of GDP. On top of that, China holds a suite of aces that go beyond lithium and rare earths, from pharmaceutical precursors to critical tech components. For any country hoping to reindustrialize, including the US, those supply chains remain essential. And as for Taiwan, it's not going anywhere. Its standoff isn't changing anytime soon. I want to hear what you think. Is China the missing piece in Trump's global trade system? Or can the US go it alone? Drop your view below. I read every one. So here's where we land. China doesn't need Trump's deal. Not right now. Instead of rushing into a trade agreement that risks hollowing out its industries, China can continue focusing inward, upgrading supply chains, closing tech gaps, and pacing economic reform. Trump may want a global reset, but without China, he's building a loop that'll never close. You want to be number one? That's fine. We'll take number two, with patience, leverage, and time on our side. Because sometimes, the best mo is to wait. If this deep dive brought you value, don't just hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Timing matters. And here at Endgame Compass, we track the moves that determine the future before they become front-page news.